to the Other Side of Success podcast, proudly brought to you by Adamo Property Group. Today we have a very special guest, Mark Robertson, former professional footballer, jack of all trades, done it all, great guy. Looking forward to hearing your story today. Mark, thanks for joining us, pal.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me in, Cory. It's what is it outside? It's a miserable day, so we're sort of glad that we're on the indoors. So I just travelled up here this morning. Been meaning to do this for a while with you, but now we're here. Let's crack on and
let's do it.
Chew the fat.
That's what we do, isn't it?
That's it.
Your fat or my fat?
Whatever.
Bit of both. Yeah. Mate, firstly, from Australia originally, football, soccer, depending on who our listeners are. Why football in Australia? Obviously, it's a rugby league, AFL sort of dominated sports out there. What sort of drove you towards football in Australia?
I guess you could say I was blessed to be born into a family with a rich history of football. So my grandfather was a professional footballer. My dad was a professional footballer. And then there was me and my brother. So naturally, we'd go to all of our dad's games. He was born and raised in Scotland, then moved to Australia. He eventually represented Australia for football, soccer, as you will. So really just me and my brother, backyard footy, really just enjoying our younger years of developing, watching dad play on the television. He played, at the top level. So watching him at training, watching him in games, I would tend to say I kind of drifted towards football purely because of the family. However, I did go to a rugby union school, so I dipped my toe in the water with rugby union.
How'd you handle that?
Yeah, loved it. So I was, anytime there was a penalty on the field, it was like, get Robbo to kick it. So, the halfway job and all the sideline stuff. So it was always quite easy for me. But yeah, so cricket, tennis, rugby, I played all sports in Australia. However, I really concentrated all my efforts and time into football.
Yeah. Did you know from an early age that that's what you wanted to do? That's what you wanted your career to be?
No, definitely not. No.
What did you want to be when you wanted to grow up?
So I always, I think I was a bit of a pyro. So I used to light fires in the backyard and stuff like that. So I always said to people, I'd love to be a fireman.
Yeah.
Just to sort of I don't know if you've seen that film Backdraft.
Yeah, great show.
I'd be one of those sort of lunatics that sort of goes out.
Undo all your fires you've started.
Yeah. Spark them up, put them out.
The hero emerges.
Yeah. So I love that. So I would have loved to have been a fireman. But then also I'd done design and technology. I'd done woodwork at school. And I just loved the carpentry side of things. So I think if I hadn't have taken my football to another level and played as a professional, I think one of those two would have been the ideal job for me. And again, you probably noticed none of them were sitting in an office.
No.
I just had some serious concentration level issues in terms of couldn't sit still, still can't sit still. I'm rocking back and forward. Yeah. So, but yeah, so at the end of the day, mate, I think football saved me, if nothing else, because when you do have that sort of attention deficit sort of issues, you kind of need something to throw all your mentality towards and all your energy towards. And football certainly was my vibe.
Was there a moment growing up that you realized you could do it though? In terms of, was there an age or a moment that clicked with you, thought, you know what, football could be a job for me?
Yeah, it was always relatively easy for me.
Yeah.
And I was probably one of those players that stood out. To look at it, I was sort of I wouldn't say I was your fat, chunky, solid bulldog kid. So every time we played, I always seemed to stick out in a sense of running through the midfield and hitting a shot harder than what anybody else could. So then the ball and the keeper wouldn't really have a chance. It would go straight in the back of the net. So running away with 10 goals a game wasn't a strange thing to me. So in that respect, that was the early years, but then it kind of got through to, around about 15, 16. And then I thought I'm going to have to start looking after my diet. I'm going to have to start getting in the gym here because everybody else around me was fit. Now I was fit, but I still had to do my own extra training to stay on top of the game.
Yeah.
So I had all the talent, just needed a little bit more fitness. So I joined a gym and started smashing that. Just I didn't have a trainer. I just watched what everyone else was doing in the gym
Yeah.
and sucked it up and absorbed it and thought I'm going to do a bit of that, and kind of worked for me. I put on a bit of strength and a bit more size and become a little bit more agile, I would say. And then it all clicked into place, and I knew I was on to some sort of winner. I was going to have a career somewhere, just wasn't sure where it would be. If it was in Australia, so be it. It was like, I don't know, 120 grand a year or something like that. Better than just, going out and being a fiery at the time. However, when I got my break and my move abroad, then obviously you kind of feel like you've hit the jackpot, if that makes sense.
And what was that move like? Obviously, family and whatnot. Like, how did that impact you and sort of your family having to relocate to the other side of the world?
Yeah, it was tough, really tough, because, I'm from, mum and dad raised me in Bondi, 300 meters from the beach. We then moved to Maroubra, another 300 meters from the beach. So I lived the best life, swimming, surfing, playing sport outdoors in the sun. So when I got the opportunity to move abroad, it was England, because England was what the pinnacle of football still is now. Really, it was the Premier League. It was the best in class play in that sort of competition. So I was like, oh, okay. So when I come across, it was really a shock to the system. However, because mum and dad were both British, we'd had family holidays in Britain, so I'd sort of tested the water with the cold and stuff like that. So it was never going to be a major, it wasn't a massive, shock to the system. But to settle was very difficult. I just turned 19 at the time. And it was Burnley Football Club that acquired my services. They paid, a transfer fee to my club in Australia. So once clubs start to pay a transfer fee for you, you sort of feel an element of, I guess, a need to do well. So that kind of changed everything for me. I think my whole level of professionalism changed when I come to the UK, because they were in League One at the time, and I never really had an aspiration to play in League One. However, I thought if I start here, then I should be able to climb my way up through the leagues.
How did you find it culturally? You've come from Australia, where it's a sunny, expansive type style of football. You come to England, where it's raining, it's cold. How did you find off the field as well? Obviously new teammates, new culture with the guys you're hanging around. How was that adjustment as well?
I think
different banter, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, you know what, mate? Like the culture in football would be a lot easier to adjust to from Australia to England in football than what it would be in rugby.
Right.
So if you look at football in Australia, when you come through any of the ranks, there's a lot of expats involved. So, English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, all the Brits that live in Australia generally play football. Whereas in rugby, you generally don't have those sort of the Brits involved in the game, whether that be sitting on the board, whether that be presidents of the football club. So for me, when I come across, it was easy, because, my dad's team was full of Scousers and full of guys from London. And so the banter and understanding the way people spoke is like a duck to water, mate, because my mum and dad had Scottish accents. So it wouldn't matter how much someone sort of barked at me. I kind of understood what they were saying. Whereas I've noticed with other people coming from different parts of the world, they kind of struggle to understand some of the accents within the UK. I was fine, mate. So I was Jack the lad every night out. I was the first one there, probably the last to leave against my sins, you know what I mean? So on the field, off the field, I kind of tend to look at it and probably say I was a really good teammate and someone that would be good to have around.
Yeah. How do you think it's changed nowadays? Obviously, your son Alexander, he plays for Manchester City. He's on the cusp of playing first team football now. How do you think it's changed now? What would take Mark the dad away from Alexander and take an ex-professional athlete and the things you did right, the things you did wrong, what would you say to someone like that who is on their own journey, but also trying to navigate that journey best of their ability with all the distractions that are happening in the world at the moment, social media, drug and alcohol temptation? What would your advice coming through that era where it was train hard, play hard, party hard,
Yeah.
to now being a lot more professional?
Now you would almost say that players have to become more of the geeky side of, let's put this into a perspective of, you know, someone at university. Someone at university that just rocks up, does the classes, does, you know, the sort of, I don't know, the odd drop in classes, they'll do okay. The ones that turn up, do the same as that, go away, and then do the extra studies, they go to the extra study groups, they'll excel more. So what I'm trying to say is that you can't just rock up and do the bare minimum anymore, because what's happened in my eyes is that players have become closer together in a golf pattern. So you're not now looking at, 70% of the boys being great and 30% of the boys being poor. I think everyone's got similar attributes. I think now what stands out to me is the person with the stronger mentality, the stronger will to do some extra bits and pieces will then go on and be successful. I don't know, in my last 7 years, I haven't come across anyone that sort of tosses it off and doesn't do extras to be successful. The only people I know and I look at and I study are people that have done the extra and gone the extra yard. So that could be like in life, maybe this generation, and it's nothing to do with social media, nothing to do with, the pitfalls or the pinnacles that these guys will reach. I always feel now that the difference will always be the person that's willing to do those extra little bits, whether that's on the field, off the field, ask questions, use the resources, look at their own game, and analyze their own game, see where they can improve. Back in my day, as soon as the final whistle went, you'd park that game and you'd move on. The gaffer might just throw some comments to you on a Monday morning, but he certainly ain't dragging you in and sitting you in front of a big screen saying, oh, what about this? You could have done this movement, that movement. I recall once in my career getting dragged in front of the manager, and all he said was, what were you doing on that cross? Could you not have opened your body up? The guy got above you, put an elbow on, scored a header, back post. Do you not think? I was like, yeah, wow, okay. But never, ever did I sit down and analyze my game. No way, even if it was on television. Whereas now, with Alexander, we look to try and, go through his games and pick up on the good, the bad, the indifferent. So I think, long-winded answer, however, what I would suggest is that the player or the players that are willing to do that little bit extra, for me, in my understanding, will go on to have a little bit more of a successful career than the person that's talented and will just rock up and do the bare minimum.
Yeah, I definitely think there's been a massive professional culture shift in sports. I remember when I debuted mid-2000s, it was after the game, it was beers and pizza,
It's
and
true.
then by halfway through, it was protein shakes and ice baths.
Yeah.
And sort of leads me to, the whole culture of, train hard, play hard, party hard. How did that affect you? Because like you said, you didn't have that support of having an analysis or extra opportunities to train or do things like that. How does that then, as athletes, we have a lot of spare time. What do you do with yourself in a foreign country? Probably just meeting new people and things like this. Where nowadays, if you're coming over here, you got to do extra gym, you got to do extra video, all these things. How did you fill your time back then?
Oh, yeah, good question. And you never really think about these things until someone really pokes and prods. So I guess for me, I always spent the first 3 months in a hotel.
Yep.
So hotel life consists of same people on the desk,
Yep.
same room, No kitchen, so you got no kitchen to cook your own food.
Yeah.
The food is the same, the menu's the same, hardly changes in 3 months. So therefore, you almost feel like it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
You will get up, same phone call will come in the morning to wake you up, go down, very similar breakfast daily, get off to training, do your training, try and stick around as long as possible because you know you're going back to that room. It wouldn't matter if it was the Sheraton, the Hilton, or if it was a Holiday Inn or Best Western.
Yeah.
It's basically a room.
Yeah.
So I've stayed in some great hotels and some average hotels, but again, it's just a room. So training, go back to that room, walk in, I've got to get out of here straight away. So I would dump my stuff, get out, go for a walk through the shops. That would take a little while. There's an extra hour. Try and grab a bite to eat, a sort of mid-afternoon sort of eat, and then get back to the hotel room, walk in, have a look at it and think, looking at my watch going, is it dinner time? I might get down for an early tea or something like that. And then just drag it out. So you're always looking for something else to be doing with your life, which is probably not a good thing because someone like me who lacks concentration and lacks the ability to just lie and watch television, like it was danger. It was danger because I'd be sniffing around to hear what the boys were talking about doing. So if it was golf, sweet. Yeah, I'm coming straight away. Or if it was, some boys would go to the casino, I'd be like, yeah, sweet, let's go. I'm coming. Or if it was going to a restaurant and having a few drinks or whatever, no matter what it was, I was coming. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because I just didn't want to, I didn't want to go home and spend that time on my own. But then thankfully, my wife now, Lucia, she come across. Yeah. And she settled me down as best she could. And
shout out to Lucia.
Yeah,
Taming the beast.
Shout out to the wife, the lovely wife. So she settled me down a little bit, and then it was the two of us. But then you take on the responsibility now of having to foot the happiness or the sadness of someone else now. So if someone else, like my wife, is struggling with homesickness, or she's struggling, she's got no family around her, then you're taking on another. It's not a burden, but you're taking on, more responsibility when realistically you've got so much on your plate as it is. And at 19, wow, man, it's like, it's not a foreign country because everyone speaks the same language, but it certainly was us out of our comfort zone and in a completely different environment, especially my wife. She's from Peru originally. So moved from South America to Australia, lived the best life on the beach. She's lived all her life in Maroubra, and then to take her from there and then take her to the northwest of England, in particular Burnley, I would say would have been a difficult thing. And I took that for granted probably, and probably still do, because talking about it now, looking back on it, that must have been a real daunting experience for her.
How did you find that extra pressure in terms of, I've done it myself, your family coming over and like they ride the roller coaster with you, but on the same time you ride the roller coaster with them. Did you have much support from the club, from teammates who have done similar? Like, how would you position this to someone who is potentially looking at doing this with a young family or with a partner? Because I know there are a lot of, Australians or that are over here in rugby and football that are chasing that dream, you could call it. But there's so much stuff behind closed doors that the public aren't privy to, the club might not necessarily be privy to. What is your best advice to try and handle that home life, I guess?
Well, I'd like to think, I come over in 1997, so I'd like to think between then and now, clubs have kind of got their self in order and thought, well, we're going to have to start doing something for these foreigners that are coming over. So I can only imagine, excuse me, it's a little bit better now than what it was then. I didn't have any help really from the club apart from, here you go, you're going in a hotel for 3 months, your food's taken care of, your accommodation's taken care of, but within that 3 months, you've got to find yourself somewhere to live. It wasn't like, here's, a list of rental properties. This is where you can live. This is where you should live. bless them, they were just normal people doing their jobs. And if I needed anything, I could knock on the door and say, hey, should I live here? Should I not live here? So I'm not throwing anyone under the bus from Burnley Football Club. However, I didn't have someone assigned to finding me and my wife somewhere to live. So therefore, one of the sponsors at the football club took it upon himself to say, I'll sort you out and I'll help you. So bless him, he passed away recently, but me and my wife always say that if it wasn't for him, we feel like our time at Burnley Football Club could have been and would have been far tougher than what it was, because he took Lucy under his wing and gave her the opportunity to go in and work in the industry that he was working in. Very successful businessman. His wife was lovely, had 2 young kids. And so he made us feel at home, even though he was English. He took it upon himself to adopt us as kids, really, young teenagers at 19, and say, I'll help you. Whatever you need, let me know, and I will do my best to make sure you've got it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need. And I think it's in sport in general, I had a chat with a friend of mine the other day who was an ex-athlete. I said, what would you say is the biggest motivator for you as a player to play? And it was to feel, what do you use? You said the word valued. If you feel valued in an organization, I feel like for me personally as well, that you want to then play, you want to repay sort of that favor. And it comes down like this sponsor obviously valued you and Lucia as people because he wanted to help you.
Yeah.
And obviously then the side track to that is obviously values you as a player. At the end of the day, we are commodities. We are, we're employees. We're paid to do a job. So if you feel valued, you're automatically going to feel better about yourself because the ego will say, yeah, I'm appreciated here. I'm valued here.
But is that just us as individuals?
Well,
would 90% of the sporting population not even give a toss, mate, and think, I don't really care whether I'm valued or not valued? So we can only go on our experiences, and I'm with you, right? Yeah. It's human nature. If someone pats me on the back, I love it, and I sort of raise and rise. But then if someone kicks me up the arse, sometimes that can give me the ability to raise and rise to where I need to be as well. Definitely. So
it's a fine line between
it's catch-22.
A kick up the arse and a cuddle. And I've learned some blokes need a cuddle, some blokes need a kick up the arse. But I think if you look at it from the perspective of getting the kick up the arse, well, then they want you to be better.
Yeah.
And not all the time. There are some times where coaches have it in for that certain player for whatever reason. But I think 99% of the time, at least, that if you feel appreciated and wanted, you're just going to just do better.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, and even in training sessions now, there tends to be a lack of competitive edge with players. Whether they win or lose in those duels at training, they don't really, they're not bothered. The coaching staff in some respects aren't too bothered. As long as when it comes game time, I guess you make sure you win those duels. Whereas I was always taught you will play the way you train.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to train at 110% and put in that commitment and those levels of, I guess, challenges and duels, then you can't switch it on and off like a light on a Saturday at 3 p.m. in front of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's the strange thing now, and that frustrates me because I look at it and I think, are you for real? Like, what? That team's getting beat 7-0. Like, I'll speak to, a player and they're like, oh, well, we're getting pumped 7-0 at training time. 7-0? How's that even possible? It's like, was it a team of 3 versus a team of 5 or 6?
Yeah.
No, it was 7v7. Impossible.
Yeah.
At whatever level, 7-0 is impossible. Because if you have 14 humans that are athletes and they're competing at a very similar level, 7-0 can't happen. There's something fundamentally wrong in my eyes if there's a 7-0 job at training. Now, that needs to change. You can get the fluky 3-0, 4 maximum, but not 7 or 14-7 or
no.
You pick a scoreline. I'm not having that, mate, because that just, in my eyes, as a former player, as a former coach, just can't happen.
Paul Rowley, the coach of Salford, has one of the best quotes I've heard in terms of his training and the way he wants his players to think. You can't be a mug 6 days and a star on the 7th.
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, I was like, wow, every
Can
day.
you be a mug for 3 days and a star for 4 days? Because ultimately, I
Yeah.
think you're going to have your dips.
Of course you are.
And then you're going to have your pinnacles, if that's what you want to call it. Do we do it on purpose?
I think it comes down to what you can control.
Yeah.
I think
consistency is a big thing for me.
Yeah, if you can control your work ethic and how hard you work, you're not going to win every ball. You're not going to win every play.
No.
But if you can control what you can control in terms of your work ethic, how you are in your energy, you're going to have days where you're exhausted. You're going to have days where you're sore or you don't feel like it. But if you can turn up more days than not, controlling what you can control, then the outcome will then become more positive in your favor. But you would have played with guys who were more talented with you. I've done the same thing, but just didn't have that work ethic to match that talent. And they'll play a 10 out of 10 game, then a 4 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And it goes on. And that's the consistency you talk about.
Yeah.
And you can't control blokes how they're going to play next to you or the weather conditions, the field you're on, but you can control what you can control in terms of your work ethic, your desire, your hunger, your competitiveness. If you can keep that to a high level, then 9 times out of 10, you can at least look at yourself in the mirror after a game and say, I had a crack. I did all I could do within my control.
Yeah, it's difficult because what I would say to all of it is, who is telling these players what they're good at? Who is identifying 3 skill sets that a player's good at? And if he sticks to those 3 skill sets, he's offering a lot to this team.
Yeah.
Who's doing that? Because what happens is you'll have players who have 3 great skill sets, but then they wander into the 4th and the 5th and the 6th and take it upon themselves to try and offer the next 3 skill sets, whereas they're not very good at it, so it's detrimental to the team. So for me, you've got to identify every single individual. You can't put a blanket cover over all of them and say, this is what you need to do at training. And people might say, right, you take the back line, you take the midline, midfielders, and you take the forwards and you segregate them and you work on them separately, and the goalkeeper, obviously. That needs segregated again. If it's a back 4, you've then got to go into the individual of each one of those 4 players and then break that down and go, what's his strengths and what's his weaknesses? And that doesn't happen enough. Yeah. So we can all say that's a good team there, or that's a good unit, defensive unit, midfield unit, or attacking unit. However, you need to break it down again, because as me as a right back and you as a right back, I guarantee you our skill sets are different, and I guarantee we bring different fundamentals to.
I'm not bringing much, mate. I'm not going to
lie.
I'm not bringing much at right back.
But that's the part that people miss, and that's the part where I think a lot about individuals. So I'll always look at an individual. Hence, the recent projects that I've been doing is in the scouting and recruitment department to say, what is that player's skill set? What value could he add to that team? What's his ceiling point in terms of where do I think he's going to reach before he has that plateau and really just sort of stays at that level? So I find that very fascinating. And I think I always say to my son is, you're an individual in a team environment, but you're an individual first. Yeah.
You got to fill your own cup up first.
100%.
You know, the better Alexander is as a player, the better the team is.
Yeah.
And it's the same with every player. The better they can prepare, the better they can play. It goes a long way to then, if the rest of your teammates are doing the same thing, then you collectively become a better team.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you put your own oxygen mask on first on the plane before you try and help other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do what you're good at first and foremost, but be careful in who you listen to as to what you're good at.
Yeah. Especially being around, you know, the academies and stuff now with my son and his journey. It's a very interesting place to hear some comments. And I think for me, less is more. You know, I'm not educated or skillful enough to tell him how to play football. It's not I'll get you to tell him how to play. Yeah. But for me, again, I just tell him, be the hardest worker, be the best teammate, and what's your next job? And that's 3 things that helped me. But I can't tell him how to do this tactically in football. It's not my cup of tea. But I think when there's some high stakes on the line, which I think a lot of these people in these academies visualize for the future for their child, which is great. We can all have ambitions and whatnot. And you would have seen it more than most, how muddy that water can become, and how you said who you're listening to, and things like that. What are some of your experiences with being in and around that?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. You know, at times I don't think there's been, people in the building or in the family room that would respect that I've played the game at the highest level, because they're that narrow-minded. They're that self-incentivized to say it's all about Jack. And if my little Jack does this, then my little Jack will get that. And it's a real funny place to be. And I call it the asylum. So everyone laughs at me, but so
who's running this asylum?
It's the family room.
Yeah.
It is. It's the asylum. It's all nutters put into one room, and it's not policed by anyone. So therefore, it's a poisonous and it can be very toxic place to be. Hence the reason why some families might say, "Why does he sit in his car all the time?" And I know ex-professional footballers that just don't go into these rooms.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why is that? You're going into a room full of adults that realistically should be intelligent enough to understand that you don't talk about a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old the way that they do, or the way that they would pass in comments. So let's say me to your son, my passing comment might be, Jax was terrible today, wasn't he? Who on earth am I to give my opinion as a father of Peter over here that this other player in his team was poor today? In what are you seeing and what are you going through to maybe make that comment? I will never, ever know. Me as a former professional footballer, I can look at it and say, Jax was good, bad, or indifferent. However, that's not for me to give any opinion because I'm concentrating on my Alexander at this moment in time. And at the very least, or at the very worst case scenario, I can tell him how he done because I'm his dad. Still doesn't give me the right to slaughter him, although I hold my hand up. I have been in that situation where my emotions have probably got the better of me. And I've said to him, what was that? What was that all about? Not so much first touch, skill levels, attributes, but more the work ethic. More the determination to win duels. That for me gets under my skin.
Guilty.
Yeah, so I put my hands up and I go, sorry, I've shouted a few times, mate, are you for real? Whereas I could never really question him and say, why didn't you do a skill there? Why didn't you nutmeg that bloke there? Why didn't you do this? Okay, to a certain extent, I've got to the stage where, why didn't you have a shot? Because you probably could have scored. But just little things like that, really. Who gives these guys a license in the asylum to go and make comment about any other person, especially an adolescent child? Who gives these guys the right? And that's where I'm very surprised it doesn't turn into more of a sort of biffo in these places. In Australia, you wouldn't get away with that.
No.
I reckon someone would go for you.
Yeah. I think also, though, if you did react, there's every chance that your son is then at jeopardy.
That's probably why. Everyone's
everyone's scared.
Everyone lives in fear. When they go through the gates of an academy, because it's what if? What if? What if he does this right, he'll get this? What if he does this wrong, he's going to get this? Do you know, what if I do something wrong? And it's like...
eggshells, isn't it?
It's crazy, man. It's just a really... And I loved every minute of it. Not sure I'd want to go through it again if I had that child again. It was like... We knew what sport's like. We know what it's like to try and hit your heights and be at the top of your game. Did we underestimate it? Probably not, because I come in with this massive shield, and mate, I had a stab-proof vest on. I had a Ninja Turtle shell on my back. I had a stack hat on.
You were ready.
I had gloves. Oh, mate, I was ready.
Yeah.
Straight away, I was ready.
Yeah.
Walked into one of the world's biggest football clubs. I was ready for whatever come
Yeah.
at me, mate, because I could see it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
I'd already been there.
Yeah.
But I'd never played over here as a child.
Mm.
I'd never played over here as a teenager. I come over here as a first team player. Sink or swim. Robbo, are you willing to help us win 3 points at the weekend? Good if you are. If you're not, mate, learn how to fight and do that. If someone talks behind your back, you grab them in the showers, you get them by the throat, put them up against the wall. If you were to speak ill about someone else in your team, don't be surprised if someone grabs you by the throat and you're pinned up against the wall and what are you saying? I heard you were saying this, but no, it can be toxic, man.
Yeah. So you came over and played. You then went back to Australia. How was that transitioning back to Australia?
Terrible. We'd lived best part of half our life, maybe a third of our lives, me and my wife, in the UK. So we were here for 11 years. So come over sort of 19, went back at 30. So realistically, that's a lot of your adulthood lived in a different country. So therefore, when I went back, I was kind of expecting life to be the way it was when I was there first. But how could it be? Because mum and dad were looking after me in Australia.
Yeah.
Like,
you left as a boy, came back as a man.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to try and understand. And I look back on it now and I think, wow, like no wonder I was such a big child when I went back there, because I was trying to fit back into where I was before.
You're going back to the known, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. And everything seemed the same, apart from there was a few extra apartment blocks, or there was a few extra this and that, or the infrastructures of things had got better. I didn't know how to settle, mate. I almost felt like I was someone that was being released from, I don't know where. I don't know what it's like to be released from prison. I don't know what it's like to be released from the army. But I almost felt like that must have been what it was like, because I went into this real weird situation where it was like, I actually don't feel like I fit in my own hometown. I talk different because obviously I picked up an accent in the UK. I had a different mentality to everybody that was there. I was maybe a little bit more successful than some people, but then maybe not as successful as others. And I just really felt strange and felt like a sense of not quite sure what to do here. So I had to refine myself again, if that makes sense. Didn't have the same banter with people. And I was really just thinking to myself, I want to go back to either being a child in this country where I really enjoyed myself, or I want to go back to the changing rooms of England and live that life. But I was doing neither. So then I was like, I wasn't quite sure how to re-energize or revamp myself to be the person that I wanted to be. So I dipped my feet, my toes, sometimes my whole body into stuff that potentially wasn't for me, just in order to try and find me, if that makes sense.
When did you find yourself again? Or are you still searching?
I reckon about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm 45.
Yeah.
I reckon at about 40, I found myself.
Yeah.
So I retired at 30.
Yep.
So I think it took me 10 years.
Was that retirement did you jump or did you have to get pushed?
Yeah, I kind of got shot.
In the back.
Yeah, almost like one of those wounded animals that
put him out to pasture.
Get him out there, mate. He's no good
Get
to
the
us
shotgun.
anymore. Yeah. So I had 10 operations.
Yep.
From the age of 16 was my first ACL knee reconstruction. And my last operation was when I was 29. Yeah. And so 3 ACL reconstructions on the same knee. Had double tendinopathies of my groins, so both tendons snapped off the bone, had to be reattached. Hernia, had the whole sort of replacement of ligaments and stuff. and then broke my ankle twice. So
The body was just breaking down.
yeah,
The body couldn't do what your mind still wanted to do.
the body couldn't do from 16, 17 what it could do at 15,
Yeah.
16. I was flying at 15, 16.
How frustrating was that?
Yeah. At the time, I had so much bravado. I was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Sweet.
Yeah.
I'll come back.
Yeah.
Some people don't come back from that one ACL reconstruction. And I certainly didn't come back anywhere near the same mobility, the flexibility. I couldn't bend my knee for the whole of my career. But thankfully, and I don't know how this works now, I didn't do a medical at any of the football clubs that I signed at.
You bluffed your way in.
Seriously. Well, because I'll tell you what, if I did, and the only one that I did do my medical at was Sydney FC in the A-League, and it was really just a short-term contract, and the doc was like, mate, what's wrong with you? I was like, what do you mean? He said, what have you had? And I was like, do you want me to be honest with you? Give me that pen and give me that pad. And I just put a list of all the stuff that was wrong with me. And he was like, mate, how are you still going?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't know. So when it come time to renegotiating a contract at Sydney FC after my short-term stint, the club just wouldn't sign me.
No.
I wasn't insurable.
Yeah.
You can't insure someone like that because realistically you shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
And that weighed on my mind. And, you know, even players in the change room, like I had World Cup winner Janino in the showers next to me one day, and he said, oh, I heard a rumour. And I was like, what's that? And he says, you've got no ACL at the moment, and you've had this. And I went, so? He goes, how do you do it? And I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah. And so then I started questioning myself, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Am I taking too many drugs? Am I taking too many masking agents that is numbing the pain? Whereas the mental pain was there, the physical pain was there. I was just living on not knowing who I was or what I was. But I knew that this had to continue for as long as possible to delay the inevitable of coming to reality that, mate, you're no longer that person that people want a signature from or want to maybe be around. I don't know. Yeah. It was difficult. And you're chasing something that potentially might not be there. So that was difficult, really difficult.
I think anytime an athlete transitions from, we've both been through it, from being that, having that identity as Robbo the footballer, Cory the rugby player, and then all of a sudden it's taken from you. Who are you? Who do you become? Like you said, you're sort of a someone to no one's really. Yeah. A lot of people you don't know you. And then all of a sudden it's all taken from you. And then it's like, how do you get that high again? Is it, we're both aware of the painkiller, substance taking in sport and to a degree it's needed because of what we put our bodies through. But then there's times where, do you try and find a job that gives you that same rush? Do you try and put yourself out there where you could potentially make a goose of yourself in a job, but it's a rush of learning it? Or, how did you sort of come up with that transition or how did you deal with that transition? Because it's not easy. It's regimented, from 15, 16-year-old, 19 moving to England, moving back, being in the change rooms, being with all these great people, playing in front of thousands of people, being on television. And then all of a sudden, that's all taken from you. The camaraderie, the reliability of your teammates, the aura and the rush of playing. How did you find that? I know it's hard, but was there ways that you found you could deal with it better or worse than other ways?
It was difficult. I just went back to basics and thought to myself, what do I like? What is my strengths? Yeah. And I liked being fit. Yeah. Physically fit. I liked the fact that I could wear a nice tight fitted shirt. Yeah, I looked decent in it. Yeah. And I liked that people respected what I'd done when we weren't on the field or even when we were on the field. So I might do some extras in the gym. And people are like, oh, that's class. Like, look at him, he's doing extras. So I thought to myself, could I be the next best strength and conditioning coach for the Australian football team? So in my mind, I was like, that'd be perfect for me. Yeah. I could just lean on a lot of my experiences. I could lean on what I'm passionate about, which is fitness. And then I can hand that over to other people So that's where it started. So I went out and thought, how do I do that? I looked at becoming a personal trainer. So I've done all my badges in that respect, you fitness level 1, 2, 3, all of that. So I went and done all that. So I'm back to sitting in a classroom and learning. I knew a lot of it because I'd been through the injuries and I'd seen that many skeletal systems. And this is what's wrong with you, Mr. Robertson. So it was fine. So I was going good at that. So then I become a personal trainer. But what comes with that is you're up at 5 a.m. in the morning, you're training people before work. But then I was still trying to live a different lifestyle where I might have a heavy night the night before, and then I'm up at 5 a.m. and then I'm getting to the gym, and then I'm maybe not sort of like putting the best Mark Robertson forward for the clients. I did for a while, and I was doing really well at it, and it was very successful. Everyone was like, I want to be trained by Mark, he's a former athlete, blah, blah, blah. But then kind of hit a boredom maybe with it, and just thought, mate, what's actually going on here? Like, I'm a personal trainer, but I'm out of the football scene. So then I started up my own football academy, and started it up off the back of mum, dad, wife, just saying, you've got kids now, you've got a son, he'd probably love your help, and but not only your son, there's other kids at a young age that could do with your words of wisdom. You've been retired for a few years now. You certainly ain't getting back into it, which was still a shock to me because even till today, I'm still waiting for the phone to go, and it's such and such from the championship. We'd love you to come and play for us, and whatever. It's weird, and so I thought, perfect. I'll put all my energies and efforts into the young kids and help them to aspire to do what I'd done. Problem with that is you then come across the kid that's not as talented as what you were. Or you will come across the kids that's you're training two players, one of high level ability and the other one not so high level ability. So then how do you adjust the training program so that these two can train together? So I come across lots of different challenges where you then put 10 kids in a session and 9 of them are of a decent level, but that one is the one that breaks down. That one player does not have the same ability as the rest of them. It breaks down the session. And I felt sorry for that one kid. So I'm like, then, well, how do I cater for that one kid? Do I offer him one-on-one individual sessions to try and bring him up to speed a bit quicker? But then I felt like a fraud. I'm thinking, geez, I'm going to have to take extra money off that mum and dad now to try and help little Johnny to get up to speed with the other 9. And I don't know why I felt awkward about it, but I do these sessions for this little kid just for free. And then I thought to myself, well, you're not making any money off it. And my mum and dad are like, you're spending all your energy and effort into the kid that doesn't have the ability the same as the rest of the 9. Why don't you concentrate on the 9? I was like, because I feel sorry. I feel sorry for the little one, the little one that's struggling. So then I put together an elite group. And in that elite group was my son and other 9 players, which made up the 10. So I trained the 10, and then the 11th wanted to join, the 12th wanted to join, but then I'm finding myself having to trial the 11, 12, 13, 14 to get into the 10. So then I'm just as bad as everyone else because I'm now judging players and saying, sorry, little Johnny's not good enough. He's 9, 10 years old. He's not good enough to get in this elite 10 because I'm Mark Robertson and I'm training an elite 10. My son's one of them. So there was a lot of heartbreak in that because I didn't know how. So then I hired another coach. I said, take the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15 and then build me a B team to fit in to the A team. So then the Bs would push the As and this was my academy and this is where it all evolved. And I had a real sort of strong core group of players who flew the flag for the elite side of the academy. I then had the development side and then I had the recreational side. And across Australia, we were coaching 100,000 kids a year. So it become bigger than the Eiffel Tower in many respects and very humbling for me. But it only got there because I was overthinking everything. I was thinking about the little kid that didn't have the ability to train with the others. And my analogy to try and let these kids down softly, or the parents down softly, is that you can't get in the elite squad. I looked at karate and I said, you can imagine if there's 10 fighters with black belt and your son realistically is a yellow belt, blue belt, whatever, he can't go in the ring.
No.
Or into the square and fight against the black belt. He needs to earn his stripes.
Yeah, I like that.
So I kind of went back to individualism.
Yeah.
Because it's not a team. This isn't a team. These are individuals, my son being one of them. And I'm trying to break it down to improve every individual. So as a collective, they push each other hard.
Yeah.
Mate. Then I had people paying good money to come and be trained by me. And the moment someone come into that environment that wasn't good enough, he's breaking it down. And so I'd already been through the poisonous situation. And I was like, do me a favor. If you want to have comments about your son, do it to me in a one-on-one and I'll give you the answer.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to take the answer on the chin, whether you like it or you don't like it. You can come back at me with 1,000 different ways, but this is Mark Robertson's way of educating your son. And looking back on it now, out of those 100,000 kids, I guarantee all of them enjoyed whatever they done. And then there's a small 4, 5, 6 of them now that are playing at a top level, and they were the elite group. So
it's amazing how you start with an idea of a couple of kids, grows into 100,000 kids Australia-wide. But like you said, I bet every kid had fun and learned and progressed.
100%.
Yeah.
And I would never alienate a child on purpose if maybe we overlooked them in minutes played or something like that. But what I always done was put myself in the kid's position. What would I like?
Yeah.
What would I like? How would I like to be treated?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's why it was such a successful football academy.
So you hit 40, you find yourself, you're back in the UK by then. Do you think the main reason because you were back in the UK, is that you feel like you found yourself because you're back in a familiar environment, back sort of, like you said, you spent most of your adult life here, back in sort of the comfort blanket of the known. Do you think that was a big thing moving back here? Obviously, Alexander's chasing his dreams. You're back to familiar surroundings. You got, everything sort of back to where it was before, albeit you're not playing, but you're back.
Yeah, I never thought about it, but probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. That's the first time that anyone sort of like raised it. And I was away from a lot of the traps in Australia about trying to be that bravado person that's trying to be the person that fits in to come back here. And I was just the old Robbo.
Yeah.
Hey, Robbo.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been however many years, 20 years or however long since you left.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen you, but you're just the same. You're just the same Robbo. And I was like, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel the same Robbo in Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I looking at it now, and there was some tough days where I had to brainwash my wife and my daughter that we'd done the best thing and moving back to the UK because it didn't feel like it. We didn't really have great jobs.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great career move. But what we sort of lived off the back of is that it would be good for the kids. Whether I was bluffing myself or not, maybe deep down I was thinking it'd be good for Mark because we're quite selfish as athletes or even former athletes, because we always tend to want to put ourselves first so that we can help people second. Because I tell you what, if I didn't put myself first, I couldn't help anyone. That's fact.
It's crazy, eh? How we're involved in team sports, but we are and can be quite selfish as individuals. And again, it goes back to, I remember times when I was playing, it's like, no, I can't go to that because I've got to be there ready for that, or I can't eat that you've cooked because I've got to eat this because I'm playing tomorrow. And the whole world revolves around me leading up to a game, leading up to training, or, I remember in Australia especially, it's like the only month we got off was October, bit of November. It'd be 8 weddings
Yeah.
You'd be broke
Oh,
because
man.
you'd be going to 4, 5, 6, 7 weddings because that's the only month the boys can get married.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a great profession, a great dream to fulfill as a kid and things. But there are a lot of, sacrifices. There's a lot of pressure from not just yourself, because we're always a harshest critic, but there's a lot of pressure from coaches, fans, media. There is a lot of weight that can, there's vices, there's bloody expectations from family members. There's all these things that creep in.
Yeah.
When all you see on the telly is Mark playing football or Cory playing rugby. There's a lot of hidden stuff behind it.
And I always wonder what it would be like to be normal.
You're far from normal.
But what is normal? Like,
normal doesn't
seriously.
exist.
Like, I'm going to listen to all your podcasts and everyone that sits in this position, and I'm going to try and work out what normal is, because I don't know, and I still don't know. Am I normal?
Perception. It's all perception.
Yeah. Like, what is normal? What am I chasing in life, man? Like, seriously, I'm 45. I could do nothing today, or I could do something. I certainly want to do something because I don't have the concentration levels to be able to sit down, and so I've got to stay active. I don't watch television. I very rarely go through social media. I don't read newspapers. So therefore, what is my skill set? My skill set has been around people.
Yeah.
And whether that's for me selfishly or whether that's for other people, I'm in the process now of trying to make it about other people, so that me being around other people can make them better, if that makes sense. But then that comes with a sense of responsibility as well, because if there's days where I'm not feeling, 100%, then I don't want anybody else to come down to my level of not feeling 100%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I try and stay away from certain situations where if I've got nothing to offer you today, you don't see or hear from me because I don't feel like I've got anything to offer you.
Yeah.
You've probably got so much to offer me to maybe get me up from that 70% back up to my 100, but I don't want to know about it because I feel like I will get there and I'll do it on my own accord, but I'll have to find myself to be able to do that. I'm not relying on anyone, no one.
No.
It wouldn't matter if you're my missus, my dad, my mum. I don't want anyone bringing me back up to 100.
Yeah.
If I've dropped to 70, the only person that will bring me back up is myself, which is probably, it's a bad thing because it's detrimental to yourself and sometimes your mental health. I guess.
I suppose it goes to the thing is that what's stopping you from accepting that, I don't want to say help, but support or that word of encouragement. What would stop you? Is it a pride thing?
Yeah, pride.
Yeah, of course it is. Get it out.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm able to admit that.
Yeah.
But what is pride?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Is it a feeling of feeling awkward?
100%
because I'm there all the time. Is it a feeling of bravado where it's like you have to do this yourself, mate? The little fella in your head's talking to you, going like, you don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, you've got every skill set you could ever imagine to get yourself back up to that 100. But clearly I don't, because I slipped to 70. 70 out of 100, do you know what I mean? So how do I get back to 100, or am I happy and content being at 80 or 90 but as that former sort of person that's really highly driven, unless I'm 100, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
I think vulnerability is a big one. Like for myself specifically, it took a long time for me to be vulnerable. And because you have that bravado of playing and not showing your hurt and not showing any weakness, I found that the moment I showed a bit of vulnerability to people I care about and I trust, it sort of opened the floodgates of, I'm having a bit of a shit day today. I'm not 100%. I speak to my wife, Emma, I'm like, she's like, you okay? I said, yeah, look, I just feel a bit shit.
yeah.
I said, nothing in particular. Or it could be something, it could be a situation, it could be something. I said, I just feel a bit shit. She's all right. Do you want to talk about it? I said, maybe. No, I'm good. I'll be sweet in an hour.
Yeah.
But I automatically feel better by just, that might only be a little bit of vulnerability. And just say, yeah, I just feel a little bit shit.
Yeah.
And now they may or may not do anything to encourage that or whatever. But then at least from this is just from my perspective, I've got it off my chest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I feel like that begins the healing process or or the process of getting back to 100.
Yeah.
Because we're always going to have shit days. We're going to have good days, bad days, or good parts of bad days, whatever. But for me, that really helped me.
Yeah, so I'm probably still struggling a bit with that.
Mm.
Because even my missus will be like, everything all right? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but then I'm the biggest advocate of making sure everyone else is all right.
Yeah.
Not really, because I say that, but I'm the biggest advocate of like shouting up and down and singing from the hilltops that everyone should be positive. Because at my 100, I am positive.
Yeah.
But you slip to like your 70s or 60s or worst case 50, you're thinking to yourself, oh man, what have I got to offer? Do you know what I mean? And that can be hard. And that's what I mean about like, what does it feel like to be normal? To be normal, are you 100 all the time?
No.
I don't know, because I'm not living in anyone else's body. I just know that the roller coaster of emotions can go anywhere from 100 down to 50, and it can go over the edge very quickly either way and go down or come up. And how do you control it, mate? Is it medication? Is it going to see someone? Is it just doing it all off your own back? Is it drink more coffee? Is it drink more alcohol? Like, what's the norm?
Well, I don't think there is a normal.
There isn't.
Some people, for example, you'll see old mate down the pub who's 60 and he's down there every night drinking 5 pints.
Yeah, just 5 because he's happy with 5.
Yeah. But that's his normal.
Yeah.
No, that's not my normal.
No.
It's not your normal.
No way.
But that's his normal. Some people get up at 4 o'clock to train at 5 o'clock for 2 hours before work. That's their normal. That's not my normal.
No. I wish it was my normal.
I'd be looking good.
Yeah. I'm jealous of that bloke or girl.
You know, but I don't think there is a normal. So I think rather than trying to sort of label ourselves as I just want to be normal or what's normal like, it's about being grateful for what we sort of perceive as normal. Now, if normal Robbo is, he's going to have days where he's 70, or he's going to have moments of days where he's 70. That's normal. Okay. How can we get him out of that to 100? It might take an hour. He might have to say, let's see, I'm feeling shit. He might have to say, well, I'm doing it on my own bat. Yeah. You know, but you're wise enough, and I hope that, you know, my listeners are wise enough as well, that it's okay to ask for help. Even if it's just I'm having a shit day. It's okay to be vulnerable. But what I would suggest is that don't fall to the temptation of an easy out. Yeah. Like you said, drugs, alcohol, you know, other ways to mask it, because all you're doing is masking it. Yeah. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just saying this is what has worked for me. I've had shit days where I've drank and it's made it 10 times worse. I've had shit days with injuries and whatever, and I've taken painkillers and I felt 1,000,000 times worse. Yeah. I realized early doors from experiences growing up and whatnot that you have to face shit head on. The quicker you have to put that mask, throw it out the window. Yeah. Because you can't, it's gonna be 10 masks on you when you wake up.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because I would never have taken that route as an athlete. If someone said to me, I'll give you fitness in this jar and all you need to do is drink it, I'd be like, no, thanks, mate. Yeah. I'll earn it myself.
I'll earn it, yeah.
So therefore, if someone goes, here's a mask that's going to make you feel better for however long, and it's in this pint glass, drink it, you would drink it. Yeah. Or I would drink it. And I'm thinking to myself, mate, what are you doing? You've never taken the easy way out of life, ever. Why are you doing it now? Yeah. So therefore, 5 years ago, I knocked it on the head and gave up alcohol, and I feel like I'm getting closer to normal without it, but it's still one of those buzzwords that hangs around in my head as if to say, like, do you fancy a pint? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Well, okay, well, yeah, I fancy a pint maybe in a sense of I'm going to sit down with people and have a conversation and whatnot, but maybe that pint can just be a coffee. Yeah. Because I'm still going to be the same person. Yeah. I struggled at first because I thought, I don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. If you're in my company and I don't have a drink and I'm agitated, and I don't know what you're going to get, man. I don't know if you're going to like this guy. I don't even know if I'm going to like myself. I don't even know if I'm going to like myself. Yeah. So therefore, every day was just, first of all, hiding away for starters. Then it was like you're getting into a situation where I'd be around other people and they'd be having a few drinks and I'd be like, sweet, sweet, sweet. But then I'm like, get me out of here. Yeah. I've got to go. Yeah. And It would be the old trapdoor. I'm
Yeah.
off to the toilet.
Smoke bomb. Robbo's gone.
See you later.
But it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
You could have
man.
quite easily had a rubber arm and gone, yeah, I'm going to have a drink.
Mm.
Like 5 years is massive, man. And I got nothing but respect for that. I'm about 2 months in now. Haven't had a drop.
Yeah, wow.
And I find that while it was hard the first few days, like week or two, I do not crave it one bit. Mind just not summer yet, and I haven't seen people in the beer gardens, and I'm not playing anymore to have a glass of wine after a game or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting and very steep, slippery slope addiction, and how I've become addicted to not drinking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, addicted to, because you get a lot of praise for it.
Yeah.
Which I found strange.
Because in the locker room, it's like, why aren't you having a beer with her?
Yeah,
Well,
weirdo.
you're a weirdo. Like,
Yeah.
stop being a soft, whatever you want to get called, soft
Yeah.
shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Just come have a beer.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Just can't. And then you'd be like, fire. Just shut you up. I'll come for a beer. 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 5, 5 leads to a bender.
But now it's like respect. People are like, man, I respect you. And I'm like, so I've got that little buzz back again. It's like, oh, he's doing his extras.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to that. And whenever anyone ever seen me doing the extras, they always wanted to join Robbo.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, he's doing his push-ups. Let's join him.
Well, I do think about you.
You know.
I do think about you now that I have stopped drinking. I'm like, yeah, it's sort of.
Yeah. How's he done it? I've got no idea. I can't tell you how I've done it.
Yeah.
A lot of emotions
Yeah.
for the family because it's better for them.
Right.
And it's obviously better for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just little things like that have just sort of changed my life and helped me to find myself again. And I'm enjoying it, mate, you know, and hence the reason why I come here today. I thought to myself, you know, maybe I can share something that might resonate with someone else that's listening or whatever, you know, and if it does, then great. If it doesn't, no dramas. You know me a bit better now. People listening may be like, oh, we know Robbo, but do we know the real Robbo? And
well, I've learned some stuff about you today, and I consider you a good friend, and I've learned some stuff that I'm really grateful and appreciate you coming on. But one final question for you, Marcus. What is your definition of success? So what I'm doing is I'm asking all the guests what their definition of success is. So what does success mean to you?
I think everybody's individual success will be different.
And that's why I'm going to collate them all.
Yeah.
So what does success mean to Robbo?
Success for me means I've got a house, which has a roof. And then under that roof, it has a wife and me as a husband. And it has 2 children. And the children are great, boy and a girl, because blessed to have a boy and a girl. And then in their own way, I'm helping them to be successful. So my success in a roundabout way is helping others to be successful at this moment in life. And it's not financial, but it's more, it's more of trying to be a role model now. That would be my success.
I love it. And it's the thing, like each guest has said something different and something unique. And it goes back to what do we declare or what do we determine as normal and what do we determine as success? I think that's a great answer.
Yeah,
because there's no right or wrong answers. That's the thing of it.
There's not. I've got everything in life, man.
Yeah.
I don't need anything.
No, you're good.
What I mean?
You're good.
I'd be fine if I was chasing something, but I'm not chasing anything, man. I'd be happy now to check out watching those around me continue to be successful.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Love it.
And I think along the way, I think I'll be blessed. Things will just, some dust will be dropped on my head and I'll be blessed again.
Yeah.
As I always have been. And I'll go from there.
Keep doing the extras, man.
Keep doing the
Mark,
extras.
appreciate you, man. Always a pleasure.